everybody, this is Laura with Busy Bee Farms, and today we are going to be making a cheesecake. This is a cake that I make many times throughout the year. It's very good for all different occasions, and I've been making it for several years now. It has become one of our very favorite desserts. It's one of David's favorite for me to always make, and I've made several for other parties and gatherings and things like that, and it's always something that just turns out really good. So it's one of those tried and true tested recipes that we have just loved. So today I'm going to share that recipe with you. Of course, with a cheesecake, you need to start out with a spring form pan. And that's what this is right here, is a spring form pan. And the reason it is that way is right here on the side, it has this little latch, this little buckle almost. And when you undo it, the bottom of the pan comes out. And so that is why it's called a spring form pan. This is the one I always use. And what I do is I put a piece of parchment paper down. I wrap it around the sides of the bottom of that plate, and then I just trim it off. And so that is what I have done here. And it helps the transfer after the cake is done and cooled. It just kind of helps transfer that from this pan to whatever I'm going to transport it in, and then I don't have to worry about getting the plate on the bottom back. And so that's the first thing that I have done. The next step is to make a graham cracker crust, and so to do that I just use plain graham crackers, and I use my little mini food processor here to ground them up really fine. And so that's what I'm going to be using to do that. I end up, out of the box of graham crackers, I end up using 2 of the packages inside. The recipe has specific instructions for how much you're supposed to use, and I'll check those here in just a second. But when I used that the very first time, I ended up not having enough graham crackers, crumbles, to be able to make the crust all the way around, because when you do that, you want to be able to have enough crust for the bottom and to go around the sides. And so I just didn't have enough, and so over time, just making this as much as I have found that 2 of the little packages inside the box is enough. And so that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to gather the rest of what I need, and then I'll be back. So I have out my little mini food processor here, and I've got some graham crackers in, and so it gets kind of loud, sorry, but I just kind of pulse it. There we go. Until it is just kind of a fine crumble like that, and then I will pour it in my bowl here, and then after that we'll be adding a little bit of sugar and some butter, and we'll come back to that here in just a second. But I just wanted to show you that that's kind of what I do to make my graham cracker crust, to crumble up the graham crackers. I used to put it in a Ziploc bag and just kind of beat it with a rolling pin. You can do that if you don't have a little food processor like that, but that little mini one works perfect. So I'm going to finish doing that, and then I'll be back with the next step. Okay, so we have all of our graham crackers chopped up, so it's finely crumbled, so that we can put that into for our crust. And then, so what the recipe originally called was for 1.5 cups of crushed graham crackers. And this actually came out to be more like 2 cups is what I needed. And so what we need to add to the graham crackers is some sugar. And the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of sugar, but because I added a little bit more graham cracker, I'm going to actually do 3 tablespoons of sugar. And then, let me get that. Let me get the sugar. So I've added the 3 tablespoons of sugar into the crumble, and then it wants for you to be able to bind all that together, then you need to add melted butter. And the recipe originally called for a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 stick, but I usually melt an entire stick of butter, and then I pour it slowly in there and just start mixing it around until I have the consistency where it kind of sticks together, because that's what you want it to do. When you put it down in your pie crust, you want to be able to for it to stick together to form that crust. And so that is what I am going to do now. I'm going to stir around the sugar in there so it's kind of mixed, and then I'm going to start adding my butter. I will probably use most of this, so I'm going to go ahead and do at least half, and then I'm just going to start stirring it around. And I know you guys probably can't see this very well, but as you add the butter, it starts kind of clumping everything together, and that will help it stick and form the crust. So I'm going to add the rest of that butter. See, maybe if I put y'all like kind of like that, maybe you'll get kind of see what I'm able to do here. And I'm going to add the rest of my butter. And just start mixing that around until you kind of see that all of the crumbles are coated. And this is kind of one of those things you can kind of play by ear. If you make this and there's not enough graham cracker crust for you and what you like, then next time make sure that you add more graham crackers, and then just add a little bit more sugar and add a little bit more butter to bind it all. Because that's how I had to do the first time, was just kind of play with it and find what works. But that looks about right. And so now I'm going to put it in my pan, and I'm going to start pressing it down in my pan. And what I like to do is try to do the sides first, and then to make sure I still have enough for the sides, and then I dump whatever's left in the middle to make the bottom. So I'm going to move you like this, and maybe you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put that there. And then I just take my fingers and I start pressing this to the side. And it'll be easy to try to get it to clump in the corner. You don't want it to get too thick in the corner where the side and the bottom meet. You don't want it to get too thick there, because then that'll be a really thick piece of crust. And my favorite is not the crust. I like the inside of the cheesecake better, so I guess I kind of think about that too when I'm making it. The crust tastes fine. It's just, I'm not a huge crust fan. And hopefully this works. I should have plenty of crust. Now I'm just going to kind of pat this down, and some of the places where I didn't get up so high, I'll probably go back and push that together. But I want to make sure that I have plenty of crust for the bottom. then I just press it down. And with the butter, that just kind of holds it all together. I think the recipe talks about using a measuring cup to kind of press this down, to use the bottom of a measuring cup, but I just use my hands. It just is easier for me. I'm going to rinse my hands off. And that's it. So we've got our crust around the sides, and we have it on the bottom. And that's it for the crust. It's super easy. The hardest part is just getting everything crumbled up. But that's it. That's for the crust. Now you want to put this crust in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes before you add the filling. You want the butter to kind of harden up again, kind of bring all that, hold it together, so when you pour in your mixture, the actual cheesecake batter, then you want it to be able to hold up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to wrap it up and put it in my refrigerator. I was actually trying to get this crust done before my kiddos came this morning, so that this afternoon I can make the pie, the actual cheesecake filling, so I can video that for y'all. When my kiddos are here, it's kind of hard to do that. They want to be helpers, which is great, but I also don't want their faces on the channel, so I want to respect their privacy. So I was getting the crust done before they get here. I'm going to wrap that up, put it in my refrigerator, and then I will this afternoon, then I will finish up the cheesecake and cook it. So I will be back to show you those things later. All right, everybody. So like I said, this morning I got the crust together, and then this evening after my kiddos leave, I was going to finish the cheesecake, the filling. And so my kiddos just left, and I'm getting ready to make the filling. You need 5 packages of cream cheese, and I usually just buy whatever's on sale. I don't necessarily buy brand name, but this is all that I could find, so I have just the original cream cheese. So you need 5 of these, and you want to sit them out so that they are more they're soft, so that when you start blending it, you want it to be able to mix it. So you want it softened. And then after we get that in our bowl, then I will tell you what we're going to do, because we're going to put all 5 of those packages in our bowl, and then we're going to beat the cream cheese for like a couple of minutes, and then we will add the next ingredient. So I'm going to start with that. Going to get all of these out of the packages, and then I will get them in my bowl, and then I will show you the next step. Okay, so I have all 5 packages of the cream cheese in my mixer, and I use my KitchenAid stand mixer. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing to have in the kitchen. So if you don't have one of those, you might ask for one of those for Christmas or something. Look out for a good deal for one, but they are definitely worth the investment. I make all kinds of stuff using this machine, but we are going to beat the cream cheese for about 2 minutes. We're just going to move it around in there. And after that, we are going to be adding in our sugar. And so we are going to need 1 1/3 cup of sugar. I'm just using granulated sugar from the store. And we will add the sugar here in just a minute, after the cream cheese has been blended a little bit, mixed and beat. I'm going to start adding in my sugar. I just kind of pour it a little bit at a time. And let it just keep working. Okay, and that's all the sugar, so I'm going to let it just continue to beat just a little bit there and mix all that sugar in. And then I'm going to turn that off. And usually what I'll do is try to keep like a spatula or something nearby so I can scrape the edges and the bottom. So that I make sure to get everything mixed super well. Sometimes this attachment, this little beater right here, does a good job at scraping the sides and the bottom a whole lot better than a lot of my other attachments. So I try to use this one the best I can, but you definitely want your cream cheese soft or it won't mix and beat it very well. So I'm going to hit the beater one more time. And then we'll be ready to add the next ingredient, which I believe is flour. So we're going to gradually add in 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. So that will be our next thing to do. Okay, so the next ingredient is 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And I have measured that out into my little cup, and we're going to put in just a little bit at a time. You want to gradually add that in as your mixer is stirring this. Just kind of on a small, low speed. I'm just going to slowly kind of add that in like that. Let it slowly mix together. Alright, that was the last of the flour. We're going to let it just kind of mix a second. Alright, we'll turn that off. Now, let's see, there's a little bit of flour that I can still see right here on the top of my beater. So I'm going to knock that off. And then I'm going to turn it back on just to incorporate that just a little bit. Okay, and then our next ingredient is we are going to add eggs. So let me grab my eggs. So the next ingredient is beating in the eggs, and you want 3 large eggs. And so what I have are 3 of eggs from our chickens. I'm going to crack each one of them individually into a small bowl. I just always do that and make sure that I don't have anything kind of crazy come out of my egg or any shells in my eggs or anything like that. And I do one at a time, and that's how you want to mix it with your mixture. I'm going to turn this on a low speed, and you want to do one egg at a time, and you just dump that in, and then as soon as that is mixed, and that you can tell that the egg has been mixed and blended in, then I turn that off, and then I will get the other egg ready. And I don't know what it is, but I always smell my eggs and look at my eggs and just make sure everything's good with my eggs before I put them in my food. So we're going to add in our second egg and let it just blend. And there it is. Now let's go and get our third egg. Everything looks good, and see, there was a shell that I would have got into my egg if I had not watched what I was doing. Alright, this is our last egg. Turn this back on. And then we're going to let that just mix until blended. Looks good. Okay, now I think, let's see, the next ingredient is for sour cream, and you want to do a half a cup of sour cream, and then we'll do 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now, this recipe also called for a little bit of grated lemon peel. I don't ever put that in there. It's not something I like lemon a little bit, but in my cheesecake, I don't think I want lemon in my cheesecake. So, you're welcome to add that. It says 2 teaspoons of finely grated lemon peel, but I don't do that at all in my recipe. I just will continue with a half a cup of sour cream and then the 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And so, I'm going to get those things ready. Okay, so I have measured out my half a cup of sour cream. I'm going to raise this up, and I'm just going to add in the sour cream. I just use whole sour cream, whole milk sour cream. I don't use any low fat or anything like that. If you're going to eat cheesecake, you don't really want to try to do that and skimp on the fat. I think it tastes so much better if you just do it, just take off and do it. So there's the sour cream. And then we need the 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So there's 1 teaspoon, and then I just eyeball the half. I don't get out another measuring cup for that, measuring spoon for that. So there is that. And then now we are going to mix all that up. And we are almost done with the filling. So that is all that's in the filling. Is your 5 packages of cream cheese. Make sure it's softened. And then 1 1/3 cup of sugar. 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. 3 large eggs. A half a cup of sour cream, and then 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And the way that you add those things, you need to add them exactly how I did that. So like when you're adding In the flour, you want to gradually add it in, like I told you. When you're adding in the eggs, you want to do those one at a time, just like I mentioned in what I was doing, until they're just blended. And so now we've added all of these things. We don't want to overbeat it. We definitely know those are blended things. I am going to scrape the sides and the bottoms and make sure all is good with that. And we got everything away from the sides. And then we will run the mixer again. And then it'll be time to go get our crust out of the refrigerator. And then like I said, I just kind of run that over the bottom because I don't want a whole lot of stuff stuck to the bottom. I want it all mixed in. So there's that. We'll give it one more spin around. Now you want to set your oven to 325. That's what you want to set your oven to, so it can be preheating. And this is now blended, so I'm going to take this out. Olivia loves to clean the bowl after that. After I have done this, she absolutely loves this cheesecake. Matthew is not a super interested in sweets, so he doesn't eat a whole lot of this. He doesn't ever eat my cheesecake. He'll eat brownies, he'll eat cookies, and he likes ice cream, but that's kind of the extent of what Matthew does as far as sweets. Okay, so that is done. I'm going to go and put this in my sink. And then I'm going to go and get my crust, and then I will show you what it looks like when we do that. So I have gotten my crust out of the refrigerator, and here it is from this morning. So it has chilled. It is ready to go. So we are going to add in the filling. I'm going to set you up hopefully right here so that you guys can see that pretty well. And so I'm just going to pour this filling right into this crust. And it's going to be a lot of filling. It's going to come to the top almost. And that's okay. And then I just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Just little circles like that to just kind of smooth it out. And there's the filling for the cheesecake. And I'm going to put it in just like this into my oven. And it's going to rise considerably. It's going to go above the springform pan. And that's normal. That is what it's supposed to do. And I have to look. I can't remember how long it is I cook it. I think it's for, yes, an hour and 15 minutes is what I'm going to actually cook it for at 325. I'm going to put it in the oven. I'm going to do that, and then we'll talk about everything else. Alright, so we've got it in the oven at 325, and then I'm going to hit timer for an hour and 15 minutes. And then once it's done, then all I do is turn the oven off, and then I crack the door. And I let the cheesecake sit in the oven until it's really come down to cooled room temperature. That will take probably, I think it says on here, for about an hour. Yeah, for about an hour it sits in the oven. Sometimes I let it sit longer depending on how much time I have, but the more I can just let it kind of rest and come back down, because what will happen as it's cooking, and I'll try to get a video of that, part of that too on the video, where as it's cooking the cheesecake will rise a lot, and it will go beyond that springform pan, which is very, very normal, and then as it slowly comes back to room temperature, then it will go back down, and it will actually go back down to where the springform pan is even. And so, and sometimes it cracks, but that's okay. You know, this is cheesecake. This is, you know, homemade. It's okay. It tastes so much better, and so it's okay if it has a little crack in it. This recipe I used to make it with a topping. It called for like a type of, I don't want to call it meringue, but kind of almost like a meringue, just thin layer of a meringue topping at the top with egg whites and sugar and stuff like that, or kind of making that to kind of set up. But I don't do that anymore, so I won't even include that in the recipe. I basically make it as simple as I can with those few ingredients that I told you about. And so it's going to bake for an hour and 15 minutes, and then after that it will cool down with the door ajar from the oven with the door cracked, and then it'll cool down. And then after that, then I will transfer it to the refrigerator. And then I will add the cherries. I just do like a cherry pie filling. You can use whatever you want, but that's what we have found that we like the best, is just a cherry pie filling. I usually get 2 cans because we like a lot of it, and it really coats the top and makes it look super pretty. So that's what I use as my topping, and it turns out really good. I actually would like to try a different kind of cheesecake. I'd like to try a chocolate cheesecake. I'd like to try you know, like a cheesecake with some caramel or something. So if you guys have any recipes of cheesecakes that you have tried and are wonderful, if you guys want to send us those recipes, that would be wonderful. You can drop it in the comments or whatever. We can contact you. I would love those recipes. I love making cheesecake. I think a lot of people feel like it might be a little hard to do and a little scared to do. Some people do kind of like a water bath kind of thing with it, but I don't. I just follow this recipe. Turns out great every time. It's delicious, it's creamy, it's nice, it's yummy. So this is what I do. So I will be back to show you a little bit of the cheesecake as it's rising, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's cooled. Okay, so the oven just went off. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to show you what the cheesecake looks like on the inside here in the oven. See, it has definitely raised above the springform pan. Like I mentioned, it did crack, but that's okay. When it cools, then it will actually fall back down some. And so even though you see those cracks, they'll kind of come back together, and it doesn't matter. Cracks are still good to eat too. So, we're now going to crack the oven door just like that, and then we will let this cool down completely, about an hour and a half or so. We'll just let it sit in the oven and then just kind of cool down. And so as it does that and the cheesecake kind of settles back down, I will show you what it looks like after it has cooled. But that's it. It cooked for an hour and 15 minutes. And now we're just going to let it cool down. Okay, everybody. So it has been time now for the cheesecake to cool. And here is what it looks like. Like I said, it did have some cracks here, but that's okay. You know, when it completely finishes all the way cooling down, and before we serve it, we're going to be covering the top right here with cherry pie filling, and so it will definitely cover those. And we're not going for pretty, we're going for what tastes good, so it definitely will taste good in the end. What you'll do is you'll unlatch your springform pan here, and then the bottom, you'll be able to the bottom will fall down, and you'll be able to just pick this ring up. And then, like I had mentioned before, I put the parchment paper on there, so I'll be able just to slide it right off of the pan. And then I will put it in the to-go box. David's taking this one to work, for a retirement party tomorrow. And so I'm going to leave it like this until it's about ready to walk out the door. So just so it stays safe and good as he travels. So that's it. That is how we do our cheesecake. I will get the recipe down in the description for you so that you can go back to reference that. Hopefully I was clear. Cooking videos is not something I'm great at. Trying to get better. Sometimes I go through all those quick motions and forget that I need to be more detailed. So I'm trying to do better. If you have any suggestions on what I can do or say and show that would be better, let me know. But I hope you try this recipe. It's a really great cheesecake, especially with the holidays coming up. It would be wonderful to try. Thank you guys so much for joining me on making this cheesecake. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button, if you could do that, that would be great to help our channel and follow us on our journey. And I thank you so much. Take care and God bless.